All right, it is 12:30 Pacific, which is 3:30 Eastern. So let's go ahead and kick this off and get started. Welcome to the webinar Code Club for Small and Rural Libraries. This is an informational webinar to get you guys all the information that you need to know about this amazing grant opportunity that has just opened up in the last week or so. It's going to be open for a couple more weeks. Now that I'm thinking about it, those would have been good slides to have on here. So we'll talk about that and make sure you have all the information you need by the time we're done today. This will take roughly an hour, may take less, definitely won't take more. I am recording it, and I'll email this out to everybody who's registered afterwards, and I'll put it on the landing page and all of that stuff. So you'll have all of this available to you in a recorded form afterwards. I am Luke Miller. I am the head of Code Club for Prenda. Prenda helps libraries run Code Clubs. We're a partner on this grant along with Linda Braun. Linda's on the call as well. She's a co-host of the webinar. Say hi, Linda. Just waving.
Hello, everyone.
Linda, give a little bio.
Okay, I can do that. I'm Linda Braun. I am part of this project. I could just say what Luke said. And I call myself a learning consultant, so I work with libraries and other out-of-school time organizations to help figure out how best to serve youth and families and communities. And so I do coaching on this project, and Luke and I sometimes have, we have monthly Zoom meetings where we do the Luke and Linda and participant show. So they're a lot of fun.
Yep. Thanks, Linda. Also on the grant is the North Dakota State Library. They're a partner on the grant. And then we also have Crystal Martin, who's a researcher kind of in the academic space. And her and Linda are teaming up on the kind of academic side of this. We are trying to learn from this grant, go figure. You know, whenever there's federal money attached, it'd be nice to learn things from it and not just spend. So so we're excited to spend a little bit of time with you today. Just to give you a brief history, this is actually an extension on a grant that we started 2 years ago. 2 years ago, we were granted through IMLS funds to deliver Code Club in small and rural libraries over a 2-year span to deliver Code Club to these small and rural libraries. And there were 50 libraries that received the grant, and about 20 of those have now wrapped up the grant. The remaining 30 or so are wrapping up in the near future. And IMLS approached Eric Strashane, who's from North Dakota State Library, after a conference and said, hey, would you be interested in extending this for another year to another 50 libraries? So we are excited to be able to take this. Again, we've learned a lot from the first kind of cohort, and we'll be able to pass on the best experience to you guys yet. So you should be excited about that. But yeah, we're excited to spend a little bit of time with you today. And hello, Eric, I see your message there. So agenda for today, we're gonna start at a really high level. We're gonna talk about why coding is important, okay? Before we talk about, grant and money and all that stuff, let's just start at kind of this, so we have a common foundation of understanding why is this something we should even care about? As public libraries in small and rural communities, why? Why do we care? Why should we be interested? Why should we spend time and energy and money on this whole coding thing? We're going to talk about what Code Club is, just a little bit, just for a moment. And then we're going to open up and talk about grant info and details and all that stuff. And then lastly, we will open up for Q&A. So we'll have lots of time for that. Q&A will kind of depend that's what our length of the webinar will depend on. How many questions you guys have. We could get out of here early. If you have a lot, we could get out of here right at the hour mark. We're not going to go over just to honor your guys' time. Many of you have located the chat feature already. Chat is how we're going to communicate in this. We're not really going to use the Q&A thing. So just chat your questions in as you go. If it's applicable and if we can answer it quickly, maybe we'll do that as they come up. Otherwise, we'll wait until the end and tackle Q&A at that point. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and jump in. Why coding? Why is this something that we should care about? Why is this something that we should offer to the kids in our community? I love to start with this quote from Drew Houston. He's the founder and CEO of Dropbox, and he says, coding is the closest thing we have to a superpower. So why do we want to teach kids how to code? Because we want to give them superpowers, right? We want to give these kids superpowers in our communities, in our small and rural communities all around the country. And what do those superpowers look like? Two things. Number one, jobs, and number two, life skills. These are the two large buckets that we think about these superpowers in. On the jobs front, there's a very compelling argument to be made. The statistic from code.org is that there's going to be 1 million unfilled computer programming jobs by the year 2020, which is in 2 months. Holy smokes. In 2 months, there's going to be 1 million unfilled computer programming jobs. That's not 1 million total jobs. That's 1 million jobs that they just can't find enough people who have these skills to fill it. If a kid or if a person has these skills, what that says is that they are going to be guaranteed a good job for the rest of their life. Now, this is really remarkable because in small and rural communities all around the country, we are in this economic shift right now as we move out of the old economy and into some kind of abstract new economy. And what is that thing? Well, I don't know all of it, but part of it is technology, certainly. Part of it is if your kids can interact with technology, if they can speak the language of computer, then they're going to be guaranteed a good job for the rest of their life. And one interesting thing about jobs is you don't have to move to the big city to get these jobs. People are doing these jobs from everywhere. All you need is an internet connection and a computer, and you can get these jobs. The kids in your community don't have to leave. They can stay there, and they can get these jobs. They'll transform their lives, they'll transform their families, and they'll transform your community. I'll just share a quick anecdote about the jobs thing. We've got some 13 and 14-year-old girls who have been in our code club, and they've been coming for a while, and they've got pretty good skills. And they're at the point where they could actually, if they wanted to, drop out of junior high school and start making $50,000 or $60,000 this year. Now, I'm not encouraging them to drop out of junior high because I think there's probably some value in finishing their school career, but they actually have those skills that they could get an entry-level computer programming job. And the median national salary for an entry-level coder is somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 a year. Now, I know for you librarians, you make 3, 4, 5 times that easily, but for us normal people, $75,000 a year is a good thing. That's something that we would all be happy to get. I know it's hard for you to understand because you make significantly more than that, but for us average people, that's something to get excited about. So that's just the jobs category. Now, what about in the future? Let's just imagine a future world for a moment. And in the future, it doesn't matter what your job title is. It doesn't matter if you're a librarian, if you're in sales, if you're in marketing, if you, it doesn't matter. You're going to have to know how to code at least a little bit. Coding is becoming the new literacy. Coding is becoming this baseline skill set that every kid or every human being, every person is going to have to know how to do at least a little bit. So that's kind of a side note on this jobs bucket. But regardless of jobs, all jobs aside, let's talk about life skills, because this is the other big impact category that we think about when we talk about coding. Kids are going to get exposed to this idea of computational thinking. It's a big buzzword. You may have heard of it before, but it's basically like critical thinking, problem solving, logical thinking. All of that happens because you have to do it in coding. You have to think computationally. You have to solve problems in a logical way when you code. And so kids are going to get this as just a life skill. Remember, life skills are things that apply to all areas of your life, not just your job, but kids are just going to become natural problem solvers as they learn how to code. They're going to get exposed to other STEM subjects. They're going to get more comfortable with computers, clicking, typing, copying and pasting, just those normal kind of digital literacy categories. All of that's going to happen to the kids who are in these code clubs around the country. They're going to learn how to learn. They're going to learn how to actually teach themselves new concepts, because Code Club is largely a self-guided, informal learning environment. They're going to develop a maker mentality, meaning anything they dream up, they're going to have the skills to bring that to the real world, whether it's a website or a product or a business. That's a very important life skill. They're going to be able to take something from just an idea in their head, and they're going to know the steps to bring it to the real world. That's what a maker mentality is. Relationship skills, in an increasingly digital world, every opportunity where kids can sit in the same room as another kid. They can look them in the eye, they can collaborate, they can solve problems together. That is a hugely important skill that we need. I care a lot about that. And that's happening in our code clubs. We really emphasize the relational aspect. We call it club for a reason, right? And then lastly, social emotional development. It's kind of a sub point of relationship skills, but it just, being in these environments are ideal opportunities for these kids to develop these social emotional skills that they're going to need to succeed in the rest of their lives. So lots of things to get excited about here. Lots of things to say, wow, this is going to happen if we run a code club in our community. We've been doing it, and we see it happen all the time. We get these stories back from code clubs all around the country in rural communities just like yours, where kids are actually getting the skills to get these jobs. They're actually developing the life skills that are going to change their lives and set them up to succeed in the long run. So I'm excited about that. I hope you get excited about that as well. And I hope you all decide that you want to run a code club, and you fill out the grant and you get the grant and you run a code club. So let's talk about what is Code Club for just one quick second. What is Code Club? Well, it's a weekly gathering in the library where kids gain skills through coding with the help of digital resources, a community, they're in there with other kids, a community, and an adult cheerleader, which is you or somebody at your library. We'll talk more about that whole model in more depth in just a moment, but this is what Code Club is. It's like a regular after-school program. Kids can come hang out at the library in an informal way and get these skills, actually get these coding skills that are going to change their lives. All right. This is just a couple pictures or video clips of like a code club in action. It's fun, it's chaotic, it's loud, it's all the things that you want your library to be. It's engaging. Kids are, having fun and working together and solving problems together and all of that stuff. So just wanted to show you some visuals to accompany that. All right, do I need to know how to code? This is the number one question that we get, and this is the number one reason why libraries don't run code clubs, right? It can be very intimidating to run a code club when you don't know how to code. In fact, I'd say 80% of all librarians just disqualify themselves right off the bat. They say, oh yeah, coding would be cool. I get it, it's gonna make an impact, it's gonna give job opportunities and life skills. I get it, those are things that I want the kids in my community to have, but no way, I'm not gonna run a code club, that's crazy. I don't know how to code, right? Well, luckily, you don't need to know how to code to run these code clubs. We have a model that's gonna remove all of the weight from you or the staff member at your library, whoever's gonna actually facilitate this code club. They're not gonna have to know how to code to pull this off. The model looks something like this. There's three very important things in this model. There's an adult, there's software, and there are kids, okay? The adult, the software, and kids. I'm gonna hand it over to Linda to talk a little bit about the adult's role in this whole equation, okay?
Great. Thanks, Luke. I'm always happy to talk about the adult's role. And I think it's really interesting because as Luke said, there's the question of, do you need to code? And one of the things that we talk about in Code Club and when we have our Zoom sessions and I do some coaching is that the key is being able to facilitate the learning. So we've got facilitator over here on the right, and it's all about helping young people either individually or in groups understand how to learn. And a couple of things have come up in talking with the first cohort of Code Club coders, library staff, participants, whatever they're called, adults, is that as a library staff member or volunteer or cheerleader or mentor working with young people on coding, it's important to learn with them and to have the chance to have them teach you what they're doing. It's important to say it's okay to make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. That didn't work when you were coding. Let's see what we can do to make it work. It's important to be able to help young people say, you know what, I'm going to take a risk with this. I'm going to see what happens when I do that. And you as an adult with the coding can do that as well. And then it's really important to learn from each other. So to say, hey, so-and-so next to you is working on that same thing. Why don't you go talk to them and see what they're doing? Or, hey, could you go teach so-and-so what you've been doing? Or, hey, you three, why don't you work together as a group and figure out how to make this work? So you, the adult, is that person who's like, yay, great job, or yay, help me to teach someone else, or yay, this is really awesome what you're working on. You're a cheerleader, but you're also the mentor and the coach and the facilitator who are helping move the learning along. You are not the expert. You don't have to be the expert. You're the person who's just helping to learn and learning with the young people who are in your group. So I know, as Luke said, sometimes library staff are nervous about doing coding. You don't have to be, because you actually can learn right along and take risks and make mistakes and learn from the young people as you go. Okay, Luke, that's my bit.
Yeah, that was
Back
great.
to you.
Yeah, so just like Linda's saying, we don't care if you know how to code or if there's a coding expert at your library. You don't need that to pull this off. What we care more about is, are you flexible? Are you okay in uncomfortable situations where you aren't the expert? And I think most importantly is, do you care about the kids? Do you genuinely care, and can you connect with them? Can you form that kind of mentoring, nurturing relationship with them? Now, luckily, that's kind of like the librarian's MO, right? It's like what you guys do. This is, especially youth and children's librarians, it's so natural for you, that I almost I'd say 90% of the time, the librarians I work with, this is right in your wheelhouse. This is so comfortable for you. So you being you is all we need. Okay, if you can be you, then you can run a successful code club. All right, so remember the model, there's three things. There's adult, software, and kids. So we've talked about the adult now. You know how that works. You know kind of what we're expecting from that person. Let's just fill out the model so you understand it a little bit more. The software is what becomes the subject matter expert. And this is our software. This is Prentice software, but it begins to lead the learning journey for the kids. It's what has it has all the tutorials and the curriculum, and it kind of takes them in a logical step-by-step progression from not knowing anything about coding to being able to make websites and video games and apps and animations, and newly to be able to control robotics and use maker hardware like Makey-Makeys and Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. The software is what really becomes the subject matter expert. Many librarians don't take this on because they're not a subject matter expert. The software in our model becomes a subject matter expert, so you don't have to be. It takes that weight off of your shoulders and does that job for you, okay? So that's what the software does. It also has project opportunities. Project-based learning is a big part of how we do this, and we think it's the best way to learn how to do stuff. So our software kind of has two modes of learning. Learn new stuff, tutorials, and build stuff, projects, right? And both of those are really important to the way that this whole thing works. And then lastly, the kids in our model, this is kind of what their experience looks like in a code club model. It's self-paced and self-guided. That means they get to go at whatever pace they're comfortable with. If something makes sense to them or they've done it before, they can blow through it. If something is a little more challenging, they can take their time. There's no quota that they need to hit at the end of any quarter or day or whatever. Totally self-paced and then self-guided. Self-guided means they get to work on stuff that's actually interesting to them. If they want to learn how to build websites, they can do that. If they want to learn how to build video games, they can do that. If they want to learn how to build apps for their phone, they have it all in front of them. They get to choose what learning journey to go down, and they can shift gears at any time. Now, why do we do it this way? Why, a lot of programs and a lot of education that you think of are everybody's working on the same thing at the same time. We're going to take an hour this week and do an HTML tutorial together. That's good and fine and all of that, but that's not how our model works, because ultimately we need to empower our kids to teach themselves how to code. We need to empower them to take ownership over this experience so that they can really buy in and learn at a high level. This isn't school. This is the library. This is the public library filling a need in the larger, broader community. And so these kids come to the library and they take ownership, they go at their own pace, they work on stuff that's interesting to them, and it's social. It's a social environment. They're going to be in a community of peers who are inspiring them and challenging them, and who can help them when they need help, and who can, collaborate on stuff when they need to collaborate on stuff. So it's a very dynamic and fun environment from the kids' perspective. And I'll just say too, this idea of self-paced and self-guided can be really uncomfortable for anybody who has maybe an education background. You just don't like it. Feels like you're out of control. It feels like you got kids who are working on stuff over here, and it can feel really uncomfortable. But in our model, we just encourage you to embrace that tension and to push into it and to allow the kids to really explore and take ownership, because it's very important in the learner's journey. So I'll just get that out there. And those of you who are like, you're crazy, I get it. I hear it all the time, but it works. I have lots of data to support that it actually works. Okay, so that's the model. You don't need to know how to code, because we deliver this model to you, and that releases you from any need of having to know how to code. All right, so let's...
Hey, Luke, just before, there's a question about the software and installing it on a computer or internet. And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to let you do it.
Yeah, the question is the software something I have to install on a computer, or is it something I can access from the internet? Our software is web-based. This gets into a pretty logistical question, but it's web-based. That means they just go to a website and they can access it there. You don't have to download anything. You can get to it from Chromebooks, Macs, Apples, or I guess Mac is an Apple, PC, laptops, desktops, doesn't matter. Any type of computer that, as long as it has an internet connection, you can get to the software. Good question. All right, let's talk a little bit about the grant specifics. And I see that question about tablets. I'll answer that in just a little bit. All right. So what do you guys get? As a grant recipient, the 50 libraries who receive this grant, what do you get? Well, first of all, you're going to get some robots. You're going to get some, we're not sure the quantities or anything like that, but you're going to get Sphero and Ozobot robots that you can use to incorporate into your code club. Our software includes curriculum for these devices, and so you can use them. It's going to be really fun for your kids to have another outlet. Their experience in Code Club isn't just going to be screen-based, but they're going to be able to actually control stuff in the real world with code that they write on the computer. So that's really cool. Additionally, you are going to get Apprenda's full Code Club package. This is what, we're a business. We sell this to libraries all over the country, and it's a really cool program. But you guys, as the grant recipients, are going to get the full Code Club package that we give to everybody, and that includes training, software, and support. So on the training side, it's a 2-hour training session that's done over a video call. We do it over a Zoom call. And in that 2-hour training session, we go way more in depth on that Prenda model. We talk about things like, what do I do when the kids get stuck, right? Like, I don't know how to code. I can't get them unstuck. How am I going to get them unstuck? We talk about that. And then you actually get to experience, we call it a mock code club. You actually get to experience a code club. So you'll log in, there'll be a couple other librarians from around the country in your session with you, and you guys will actually do some coding together. And that will not only get you comfortable with our software, but it'll show you what a code club should look like and should feel like, kind of give you the culture transfer from how our code clubs are being run all around the country. So you get that, you get this training session, and you get as many of these training sessions as you want, okay? If you have new people that come on or something like that, you can have them sign up for a training session that week, and they're up to speed on how to run this. So you get that. Additionally, you get the software. Software is web-based. It is, you get unlimited users with it, unlimited clubs. If you want to run like a youth and a teen club separately, you're welcome to do that. We encourage that. Our whole goal is to get computer programming education out there to as many people as possible, so we don't disincentivize you in any way from getting more people in your code clubs. The software does work on Chromebooks. I see that question. Tablets, I'll answer that question right now. Software works just fine on tablets. There's nothing wrong with the software in the tablets. The problem with tablets is that you have to click and type a lot to code, and tablets are terrible at clicking and typing. So I just don't recommend them unless you have external mice and keyboards. But at that point, why would you? You probably actually have a laptop or something. So it works just fine on tablets, but I really don't recommend it. What's the price of the software? It depends on your population size and card holders and locations and all that stuff, Genus. I really can't say over the call right now. But Yeah, let's keep going. So software is the second thing that every library gets as a part of our Code Club package. And lastly, so I'll talk about what's included, what kind of curriculum is in the software. So we have kind of three main tracks for the software. We got websites that kids can learn how to build. We've got games that they can learn, and we've got back-end scripting. Within the websites, we have categories for HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and SQL. This might not mean anything to you, and if it doesn't, don't worry. Some people care, and that's why this is here. Under the games track, we've got kids working on AppLab and Scratch and Bitsbox, more JavaScript in the games, and then in the back-end scripting, we've got Python and more JavaScript. I didn't put JavaScript in all of them, but JavaScript kind of goes across the whole spectrum of what you can do in coding. All right, so that's that. And then additionally, we have curriculum for these devices, Ozobots and Spheros on the robotics side. And on the maker side, we have curriculum for Makey Makeys and Raspberry Pi, which, if you have any of that stuff, great. If you don't have any of that stuff, it's all very inexpensive. Everything's under $100. I think Ozobot is the only thing that you can't get for $50. Everything else, you can get at least one model of it for $50. So I encourage all of our code clubs to plan on getting as much of that stuff as they can. You really only need one of each to pull it off, right? Because kids can work together and share and that kind of thing, which library is also great for, by the way. So that's the curriculum that's included in the software. And then lastly, the third thing that every library gets as part of our standard package is support and coaching, human coaching. You've got a team from Prenda who's here for you, as much as you want. We've got a whole resource library of stuff that you can use. It makes it easy to run your code club, marketing resources, downloadables, all that stuff. And then you have access to an online community. It's a private Facebook group with other facilitators from all around the country. And then I will add also, as part of the grant, you get an increased level of support and coaching than any of Prenda's just regular customers, because you have access to Linda and to the whole grant team. Linda does one-on-one coaching with you guys. And if you haven't heard Linda's name before, she's kind of a legend in this space in the library world. She's not going to like that I say that. But she's one of the authors on the Ready to Code paper, which was like groundbreaking in coding in libraries and public libraries specifically. And so if you win this grant, you have to take advantage of coaching with her. It is so valuable and so important for you to get to do that. All right, so those are the three things that are included in Prenda's Code Club package. As grant recipients, you get all of that. What do you need? Okay, what do you need to pull this off, to be successful? What do you need to provide? Number one, somebody good with kids. This is that adult. You need to provide a staff member. It could be you, it could be somebody on your team, but somebody who can commit to being the point person for Code Club. If you can even appoint maybe a secondary person, like a substitute, that's great as well. I strongly encourage that, but you need at least one person who can own this and who can be the week in, week out guide for Code Club. Additionally, you need a space to meet. It could be out in the open in kind of your public computer space, and that's great if that's all you have. I recommend project rooms or something like training rooms or something like that, because Code Club tends to get loud and chaotic, but we've seen it work out in the middle as well. So whatever you have, as long as you have some space that you can dedicate for an hour to 2 hours a week to run your Code Club, then great. You need some computers. You don't need a lot. We've seen successful Code Clubs with just 4 or 5 computers work. So if you're somewhere in that range, I would feel really good about that. If you have more, great. And then lastly, you need a growth mindset. This goes back to what I said earlier about being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. If this is new to you, if you've never done anything like this before, you're gonna feel uncomfortable at times, and that's okay. The growth mindset says, I can learn this. I can gain proficiency in this area. I can run a code club even though I don't know how to do this already. So as long as you have those 4 things, you have all of the infrastructure that you need to run a code club. What are our expectations for you? What are we expecting you to commit to? If you win this grant, these are kind of the things that you are committing to, okay? Number 1, run weekly clubs each programming season of 2020, okay? That means run a code club, include code club in your programming schedule for that kind of January to March, April, May, whatever that season looks like for you, include Code Club in it. You have to include Code Club in that season. Run it in summer as part of your summer reading. Run it and include it. And then again, in your fall programming season, run it in that season, okay? I don't care if you take weeks off in between like your normal stuff. That's not what I'm saying. Just make sure it's included as a part of your normal programming schedule for each season of the year 2020. Additionally, we're expecting you all to start in January or February of 2020, okay? The grant is only for 1 year. And so if we have people that aren't starting till May, then they're missing out on so much. And so we are looking for people who are available and ready to start to get the full usage out of the grant. Additionally, we expect you to participate in the online community. That's in the Facebook group, participate in kind of the, we do these monthly guide calls. We want you to participate in some way in those. And then any other kind of participation in that way, we expect you to like be present. Even if you can't be there live for every guide call, we expect you to make an effort and to watch the recording, even if you're not there live, okay? So that's what we're talking about there. And then lastly, provide feedback to the research team. There's gonna be a handful of questionnaires. There's an online journal that you're expected to fill out. There's some light stuff like that. And none of this is too intense, guys. None of this is anything that I would think you'd be concerned about. But basically, you're getting a lot of value. We're expecting you to put in like a baseline level of effort to pull this off. So we expect you to fill out those surveys. We expect you to interact with that online journal so that our research team can actually get some good data out of this and turn this into real insights that are going to benefit the larger global library community. Okay, so those are some of the like primary core commitments that we're expecting from you. Next, do you qualify? These are the qualifications. You must meet only one of these. Okay, I just had an email exchange earlier where there was some confusion. They thought they had to meet all three of them. You don't have to meet all three of them, just one of them. If you meet one of these criteria, you qualify. So number one, are you a small public library? Small public library. Small is defined as any public library with a service area of 15,000 people or less, okay? Number two, are you a rural public library? Rural public library. That is defined as any public library more than 25 miles from an urbanized area as defined by the US Census. And then lastly, number three, if you're neither of those things, are you a member of ARSL, the Association for Rural and Small Libraries? If you are, you qualify, okay? If you're not any of those three, you don't qualify. You can still apply, but we're gonna know that you don't qualify. You're not gonna win. All right, so if you meet any one of those three things, you qualify for this grant, and we strongly encourage you to apply. We would love to see your application there and to be considered for the Code Club grant. All right, I'm gonna pull up one more thing that I don't have a slide for, but I wanna give you dates. And I wanna show you this landing page. PrendaCodeClub.com/IMLS is the landing page. This is where I'm going to post the recording afterwards, as well as email it out to you. Everything you need to know about this grant is going to be on this page, okay? So the deadline for the application is October 31st. October 31st. It's a very spooky deadline, but don't be afraid. You can do it. I believe in you. You've still got 3 weeks or so to get that in. So I encourage everybody, go here. This is how you'll get to the form that you'll fill out and apply by October 31st. Furthermore, we do specify here recipient selections will be made by November 8th. So we're going to have a really fast turnaround, about a day or about a week turnaround to make those selections and get the word out, because you guys are going to have to start trainings pretty quick. You know, you might want to get trained up. You get to decide, but you might want to get trained up in beginning of December, end of November, something like that, so that you're equipped and ready to go for a early December or mid-December kickoff date. Or I'm sorry, early January or mid-January 2020 kickoff date. So all of that information is here on this landing page, PrendaCodeClub.com/IMLS. So I encourage you to check that out there. All right, now is the time. Oh, okay, a couple more things. 50 libraries will receive the grant. You guys know that. There's only space for 50. We've already Well, last time around, I'll say this. Last time around, we had a lot more than 50 applications. It is a competitive grant. There are a lot of small and rural libraries that understand the impact and the value that this brings to their community, and they want to be a part of it. That said, I encourage you to take some time on your grant and to really put some energy and effort into your grant application. Don't put like hours and hours and hours, right? But make sure that it's thorough. Make sure that you say everything you want to say in that grant, because it is a competitive grant. Here's that URL again. I already sent that into the chat. And now is the time when we open it up for Q&A. And I know that a bunch of questions have been coming in already, so I'm going to go back and read those. Linda, do you see any questions off the top that we should handle right now?
Yeah, so I've answered a couple of them. I think the number of desktops or laptops available, I think that there's ways to share. And then someone asked about, are there ways to borrow laptops? Not through this project, but I wonder if other people in this webinar have some ideas about good ways to do that. Someone else asked about co-sponsoring. I think that's totally up to the library, that if you wanted to find other people to work with and other ways to get funding, I think that works perfectly. Mm-hmm. And also there's a question about getting cheap free laptops. And Luke, you may think differently or have other thoughts, but I think that the number of devices is almost less important than the mindset, because I think that there are ways to connect with youth, to connect with families, find resources like you're going to get robots. Find resources that will make it possible for you to do this. You don't want to have no laptops or Chromebooks or desktops, but to be able to get started, I think you can start with a small number and build. Luke, what do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. You got to have some. You can't have zero. But one way to expand what you have is to advertise it as a bring your own device model. Mm-hmm. And, depending on your community, kids may or may not have access to a laptop that they can bring along with them. But if you've got 3 computers and 2 kids do have access to computers, and all of a sudden you got 5. That's amazing, right? So yeah, there's creative ways to kind of get around that. And then I would also, if you don't have, if you really don't have any computers, I would look at other funding sources. I would look at first to your state library. This is a huge emphasis in state libraries all around the country for infrastructure like this for libraries, and see if you can get a couple $100 and go buy some Chromebooks. Yeah, so that's an idea. Private partnerships are also another thing that I've seen work, where you go to local businesses and say, hey, we want to run this code club. And they're like, oh, that sounds cool. Here's a couple $100. And that it usually can turn over in just a couple days instead of like a state library grant that sometimes takes months and months and months. You brought up something about partnering with like other institutions or something like that. We have seen some successful partnerships with local schools. So maybe your local school has, they give computers, or they have a computer lab, and you want to administer the program on behalf of the library in the school facility. I love that. We're all for that. So just make sure you specify that that's how you want to do it in your application. But I think that all of those are good ideas.
And I think somebody else asked about sort of like criteria for selection along with the rural and space and all of that kind of thing. And if you look at the application, that's the word I'm struggling to find. The application, I think, thinking about the mindset, like Luke was really talking about having this growth mindset, you do want to make sure that you have people you are working with who are going to be working with the kids who do have a growth mindset. And also you'll see there are questions about being a risk taker and comfortable with ambiguity and comfortable participating with an online community. So think about, it's a great grant to have, but really think about what the capacity is of you or volunteers or other staff members to do this kind of work that is, Luke, you said a couple of times, I loved it, it's sort of uncomfortable and can be a little disruptive, and feeling okay in those kinds of spaces is really important.
Yeah. All right. So question, what if you are a small branch in a rural area, but part of a larger system? Michelle, as long as you meet either of those three criteria, then you qualify. So as long as your specific branch meets any of those three criteria, you qualify. Ivy Stover, are there any requirements for the grant about the number of kids we get weekly? No, you're not held accountable to the number of kids that come or anything like that. We have resources and we want as many kids there as possible, right? And so we help you do that, but we understand every community is different. Depending on your population size, your expectations change wildly from community to community, like even a 5,000 person community versus a 15,000 person community is very different. So no, there's no expectations like that.
Luke, there's a bunch of questions about older PCs running, you know, old versions of Windows, etc. I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so my normal answer is the junkiest, oldest, nastiest computer you can find is going to work just fine for Code Club. As long as it connects to the internet, as long as your internet connection is classified as high speed, you know, something above dial-up, then you're going to be great. If you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to do it. But you know, we've had just terrible computers on the slowest high-speed internet. Like if you know anything about that, like under 1 megabyte download speed, and Code Club runs just fine. So it's a very lightweight program. You're not going to need a whole lot. But yeah, if you can just scrounge up a couple machines and make sure you got internet, you should be good. Susan asked, how many kids can participate if you have 4 desktops available? Susan, good question. I never turn kids away. So I would say get as many as you can. If you need to double up or even triple up on those 4 desktops, not the end of the world. We'll find stuff for kids to do, and that kind of goes along with that attitude of going with the flow and being comfortable in uncomfortable situations. In an ideal world, everybody has their own computer, right? But we don't live in an ideal world. And so we have to be flexible. And, you know, I've got some guides and some tutorials for how do we double up or how do we triple up and share machines in an effective way. We have some ideas for how to do that. So it's not the end of the world. All right, let's keep going. Any leads on where to get cheaper free laptops? Talked about that. Chromebooks do work. I'll just say that loud and clear. I love Chromebooks. I always recommend Chromebooks. You can't get a better machine for $160, and they work great for Code Club. They actually work great for, if you think about it, pretty much anything that your library could need, as long as you're not doing like photo editing or video editing. They're going to be amazing. You can get on Google Docs and do all of your document typing and spreadsheets and all of that on Google now. So I actually recommend them in general for libraries. If we receive the grants, it's only a year. When our community grows attached to the program, how does the library keep the program? Christine, I love it. You're thinking ahead.
Great question.
I like. So even from this first cohort of the grant, we have seen that happen a lot. And some libraries were just able to fit it into their normal budget. And they said, this is important. We have great attendance. This is something that obviously the community wants, and we're going to commit to funding it. And they found funding in their own budget, and they made it happen. For others, they went to community partners, and they found funding from other grant sources or other businesses or other places, so they could continue Code Club after the initial grant ran out. So if that's what happens in your community, start working early to figure out how to fund it once the grant runs out. If you start, a good 6 months early, there's a good chance you're going to be able to find money for this. It's a great story to tell. People are eager to fund it, and so there's a good chance you're going to be able to find a sustainable funding source. All right, maybe we'll begin. A lot of people talking about cheap or free laptops. I'm not going to read all those, but make sure if you are interested in that topic, read through the comments because there are some really good ones in there. Just as a reminder to everybody using the chat, make sure you have your chat set to all panelists and attendees. There's some stuff that is really important. In fact, I'm just going to copy and paste this one about cheap laptops because it was only sent to some people. All right, could I use older PCs? Yep. Some flavor of Linux, that's fine. As long as they connect to the internet, that's fine. Could you administer the program with another small rural library in your service area? If so, would you have to apply separately? So Jason is talking about if you partner with another public library who's also happens to be small and rural, I would actually, I would have you both apply, because then your odds of winning go up, right? It's like dropping your name in the hat twice, kind of thing. So yeah, if you're planning on partnering, specify that in the grant, but I would tell you both to apply separately. Yeah, under Linux, another question about Linux, Chromium works great. Oh, here's a good question from Stephanie. Would the kids be able to access this at home since it's web-based? Yes, the kids will access it at home since it's web-based, and they're totally welcome to do that. We actually track how many logins they have outside of Code Club, because that's a great indicator of whether they're interested and engaged and stuff like that. So yeah, kids do access it at home or school or at the library, not during Code Club, and because it's web-based, they are welcome to do that and actually encouraged to do that. Jennifer asked, can a Raspberry Pi be used to run the program? Absolutely. If you've got some Raspberry Pis hanging around, as long as you have keyboards and mice and monitors, that'll work great. You'll be all set up and ready to go for a Raspberry Pi curriculum. Raspberry Pi curriculum, by the way, is cool because we can begin to mod Minecraft. And that's a new opportunity for our coders. And if you just say the word Minecraft, then you probably are going to get like an extra 10 kids show up to the library to do that. How many sessions or weeks does the club run? So Sherry is asking, how long is the program? So because it's a go at your own pace and work on whatever you want type of program, it runs indefinitely. We've had code clubs that have been going for 3 or 4 years, and they haven't run out of curriculum yet. We're adding curriculum all the time. And that's kind of the idea. Just continue to offer this, continue to run it. So just, there's some other coding programs that are like 10 or 12 weeks, but those are that model where everybody's working on the same thing at the same time. That's not how we run our code clubs. So they kind of run indefinitely, Sherry, to answer your question. Are requirements for Sphero and other robots different from Prenda requirements? For instance, would Chromebooks work? Good question, Alexander. We have made sure that all of the hardware that we use will work on kind of the standard setup on Chromebooks, essentially. So yeah, both the Sphero and the Ozobot works great on Chromebook. Can children access the program with their own Chromebook so they're not limited by the number of computers? Yeah, Michelle is asking, can they bring their own computer? Yes, they can, and we encourage that. That's kind of that bring your own device model where you have got a couple of library computers, add that with a couple community computers, and you can all of a sudden serve a much larger number of kids with your program. Oh, and Linda's answering these as we go in the chat as well. Thanks, Linda. More cheap laptop stuff. Coding Ozobots is web-based and works in Chromebook. Thanks, Jenny. Jenny's on the ball. Alexander, this is a good question. Do you find that 1 hour works better than 2 hours for Code Club? My official recommendation, Alexander, is 1 to 2 hours. So I will answer your question by not answering it. What we found is somewhere within 1 to 2 hours works best once a week, and you get to apply that, whatever you think will work best for your Code Club, and take that attitude of a learner. Start off with something and adjust it as you go, depending on what you see working in your community. That's what the most successful code clubs do. So they start and they say, all right, we're gonna try it for an hour. That's really all I wanna commit to at this point anyway. And then they get in there and the kids are like starving for more time doing code club. And then you're like, oh, wow, this is actually more fun and exciting than I thought. Yeah, we could do an hour and a half. We could do 2 hours, and you bump it up from there. So I wouldn't do it much less than an hour, and I wouldn't do it much more than 2 hours, but somewhere in there is kind of the sweet sauce. Somebody wants to see slide 22. Slide 22. Oh, Patricia, thank you. That makes me feel good. You want to see my slides. I worked so hard on them. More questions. Keep chatting those in as we go right now. I'm going to check the Q&A. So people have actually written in on the Q&A. Mary, if you applied for the Code Club grant in 2018 and were denied, can you apply again? Absolutely. We encourage you to apply again. We had a lot of applications back in 2018, and like I said before, there was a limited number, and so yeah, if you did not win, we strongly encourage you to apply again. There were tons of good applications. It was just very competitive. So please apply again, and we hope you win this time. People are asking for the slides. I can do this right now, actually, now that you ask, let's just make it available to everybody, and I'll chat in the link, and then I'll see if I can send this out afterwards somehow as well. Anyone with link can view, already set. Boom. There you go. Other questions? Is there an archive for this? I just got in and missed most of it. Yeah, this is being recorded, Janet, and it will go up on the prendacodeclub.com/IMLS site, landing page for all things Code Club, which is right here. So you can check that out. Other questions? We'll give it just another minute or two for other questions here. Of course, the call to action for today is go to this website, prendacodeclub.com, click on apply for grant, and apply. We want to see as many good applications as we can get in here. So don't be afraid if you're feeling uncomfortable, if you want to disqualify yourself, don't. We want to see your application in there. We want to give you an opportunity to win this grant. Linda, do you know what a like market value for the grant would be? I thought maybe we could just like divide the number that we won by 50, and that would put it at like. Is that fair?
Sure, why not?
All right.
You're asking me to talk about something that is definitely not my forte.
Yeah. I'd say, I mean, if you do it that way that I just said, then this is a $4,500 value per library. So that's like amazing. And that's tons of value. You know, that includes Prenda's stuff, that includes Linda's coaching, it includes the research portion of it. So there's like a really valuable thing for your library. Oh, somebody, Cecily, pick me. Oh, here's some more questions. All right, so Carol said, you did say you had marketing information, right? Yes, we have amazing marketing resources for you. We've got videos and images and social media posts, email blasts, calendar blurbs, website blurbs, all this stuff that you can just copy and paste and use to get the word out about your Code Club. We've got tons and tons of marketing stuff to make it super easy for you, so don't be intimidated by that. We've done a lot of the heavy lifting for you, and we make it really easy for you. Lisa Hoover is asking about age ranges, 8 to 18, 8 years old to 18 years old, somewhere in there. They have to be able to read, so if you have some older, like 8, 9-year-olds that aren't good readers, then they may not be a good fit for Code Club. You know, we've experienced some friction with that in the past. Generally, you can read by the time you're 8. So readers and up is what we're going to market it for. That usually translates to about third grade to 12th grade, somewhere in there. All right. Where do we get the grant forms? I had a customer, Gina, go to this website, prendacodeclub.com/IMLS. I have a bit of a sell to this little community and love all the help I can get. Sports is big, but I know I have a crew who will jump on this. Cool. Awesome, Carol. Love to hear that. If the staff has no experience with coding, you will train them, right? And where would training take place? Yes, Rosa, we will train them, and it will take place in an online video call training session. Judith, good to see your name in there. Fingers crossed in West Virginia.
Hey, Luke.
Yeah.
There's a couple people who are talking about fitting this into a busy schedule, and I typed this, but I want to say that maybe think about how you would integrate into what you're already doing, and thinking about how what Luke talked about, why coding and the skills you gain. So it doesn't have to be separate or new. It could actually fit into other things you're already doing. You just have to think about how that happens. Because I bet you're already doing activities in your libraries that help gain some of those skills. So you just tweak it a little bit and bring this as a part of that, not something new and different, if that makes sense.
Yep. And Susan's asking about doing it during the day for homeschool families. That's honestly been one of the most successful markets we've seen all around the country, Susan. So if you have that community, the homeschool community in your city, I would strongly encourage you to do that. That's a good point for the rest of you too. If you have homeschool groups, you could start an individual club just for them, and they would love that. And that could be a really successful way to engage your community.
And Amy, that's perfect to connect it to the STEAM club. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Yep. Is this something you could offer 2 times per week? Absolutely. I'd probably encourage you to have 2 separate groups of kids. instead of the same group of kids twice in 1 week. But, you know, take that with a grain of salt and apply this to however you think will work best in your community.
Mary, that's awesome. Sorry, I love that she's got something else that she's already doing that would fit into.
Love it. Is finding kids to participate difficult? Sometimes getting teens in the library. Yeah, teens are a hard market. The best you can do is, I mean, you market, you get the word out there, and you create an amazing experience for every kid that comes. That's the best thing you can do. If you've got a small group that comes the first time, but they have a blast, they're going to come back, they're going to bring their friends. So the important thing is, like, yeah, do everything we can to get the word out about it, but focus all of your energy and effort on making your Code Club experience awesome. And we help you with that. We train you on that. We give you the resources. The software does a lot of that in itself, but yeah. Yep, Jason's asking, have you tried pizza? Oh, Jason's asking Alexander. Yeah, food helps. Pizza does it all, Karen says. Pizza is amazing. All right, I think with that, we're about 5 minutes from the end. I just want to give a very sincere thank you. In fact, I'm going to scroll back up to the top and just end it on an inspiring quote. Coding is the closest thing we have to a superpower. Let's give these kids superpowers in your communities. What if the kids in small rural America got superpowers? I mean, imagine, what if that happened in your community? What if that happened with the kids in your community, and if they learn how to code and they totally transform their lives, their families' lives, and your community? I mean, that'd be so awesome. What if there's like this groundswell, this resurgence of kids from the fringes who are getting these awesome skills and starting businesses and starting websites and changing the world? I would love to see that. So do it, apply for the grant. Let's teach them, let's give them those skills so that it changes their lives. And yeah, we'll see you soon. Oh, if you need to reach out to me, if you have more questions that I didn't answer, luke@prenda.co. It's a good email address. Hit me up there. I'll type that here. Can't see. There's all stuff in the way. All right. So thank you everybody for your time today. Have a great rest of your day. We'll look forward to seeing your applications come through. Gina, I don't know what a CEU certificate is, so there's not a good chance you're going to receive one of those from me.
Yeah, it's the saying you get an hour of continuing education participation.
Yeah, we have no accreditation for anything like that. This is just an informational webinar about the grant. Somebody else asking about the slides. There you go, Michelle. There's the link. I'll put this link on the landing page as well so people can see it there. We'll just hang out for a couple more minutes. I feel like we need some music.
You could hum.
My 2-year-old son is humming VeggieTales all the time, which is a children's show. He goes, he doesn't really speak a lot, but he goes, boom, boom. He makes sure to puff his cheeks out, boom, 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 boom. Because it's got like a tuba intro to it. What's that? All of you want to see pictures of my kids? Oh, imagine that. Go figure. I guess I should pull some up. No. I won't make you suffer through that. All right, well, I think we've got everything here. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to sign off. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thanks, Linda.